Official.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, folks, thanks for your patience. Some technical difficulties getting started tonight. This is a joint meeting of the Planning Board and the Zoning Board of Adjustment. Adam's going to just do a quick spiel about how this is going to work, and then I'm going to toss it to the ZBA.
Okay, thank you all for making this work tonight. It's been a while since we've done a joint meeting of the Planning Board and Zoning Board. They are logistically a bit of work, so we tend to keep the two boards separate. But just as a refresher, by statute, it's a board of the Planning Board chair presides over the meeting. So that's why Tim opened the meeting, and then obviously for the Planning Board to actually approve the site plan, they need a variance. And so that's why there's a joint meeting. So it will almost immediately be shifted over to Michael's control to run the variance hearing. The advantage is Laura will only have to give her presentation once, and then really members from both boards can ask questions to understand the overall application. And then when it gets specific to variance criteria and reviewing that, planning board members, if you have clarifying questions from understanding maybe the concepts of what's there, it's okay to ask those. Obviously, when it gets into debating variance criteria, that's the zoning board's job, and those questions shouldn't be asked, and then vice versa. As the site plan, when that's getting reviewed, zoning board should, really at that point, most of your questions are probably answered because you've already decided if it needs a variance. So it can be a little messy, but I'm sure Michael and Tim will, work to help sort of coordinate everyone's questions. And then as far as the public, as you're concerned, same as always, there's a public comment and question period. So that really does not change things. And then once this agenda item is over, the zoning board has another application that is entirely unrelated to this application from Colby Sawyer. Planning board members, you have no other obligations after that. Tim will actually take a motion to close the planning board section of the meeting. Michael will, call open the regular meeting of the public hearing for the GNC trust. So that is sort of the overview. Anybody have any procedural questions? Okay.
Thanks, Adam. And I should have said at the beginning, just a reminder to everybody that we're recording this meeting. And then as far as the planning board tonight, just Aaron and Charlene, if you guys can both vote, great. So I will hand it over to Michael to start the ZBA section.
How does this work?
Press, yep, you got it.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. First order of business for the Zoning Board of Adjustment will be to decide who the 5 voting members of the board will be this evening. We've had a little huddle, and the 5 members will be myself, Frank, Anzalone, Ann, Heidi, and Steve. Julia will be our alternate, and as you are well aware, alternates may participate freely in the discussion, ask questions. They just can't participate when it comes time to take the vote. So, as previously stated, we are here on a variance application by Colby Sawyer College. And now that the Madam President is here, we may proceed. I made the same mistake. I went to Whipple first, but at least I got here before 6. So yeah, these things happen. But at this point, I will give you the floor and have you explain to the members of the Zoning Board of Adjustment why you feel we should grant this variance. And procedurally, the floor will be yours, and then the board members will have an opportunity to ask questions, and the planning board members may chime in, and then we will turn it over to the gallery in case anyone there would like to have some questions answered. And then once that is done, we will have a deliberation session in the full audio of the public, and then we will take a vote. So with that, if anyone have any questions about what we're going to do. Seeing none, Madam President.
And Mike, I have one description that talks about both the site plan and sort of the whole project. Is that okay? Not specific to the variance?
Right.
Okay. perfect.
Right, we're gonna sort out the facts that we need to make our decision from your presentation, and the beauty of it is you only have to make that presentation once.
Great, thank you. First of all, thank you for everybody here for being willing to get together to do this in one meeting. I really appreciate your time. So in the fall of 2024, the college collaborated with the planning board and interested abutters to amend the zoning ordinance in the institutional recreational zone to allow lights on the Sally Shaw Beach track and field and Kelsey Road access for safety. Voters overwhelmingly approved the zoning amendment on March 11th, 2025. Site plan review application is for the installation of lights on the Sally Shaw Beach track and field and the Kelsey Road access to the field. Lighting of the Sally Shaw Beach track and field is crucial to the success of our athletic program. The college will add 2 additional sports in the fall of 2025, bringing the number of teams competing for practice and contest space in the Hogan Sports Center and fields to 18. Sawyer College is one of only 2 institutions in our athletic conference that does not have field lighting. The college intends to use the field under the lights mostly for team practices and to host 1 game per season, 1 game per sport per season under the lights. During team practices, the public address system is not used, and the college intends to be well within the sound limits specified by the ordinance during contests. Field and access road lighting will conform to Dark Sky International standards, which prescribe LED lights aimed downward with shields on the sides of the lights to prevent light from spilling out to the sides or upward. The lighting plan designed by Musco Lighting prescribes 4 lighting fixtures 80 feet tall around the Sally Shaw Beach track and field and 10 fixtures 25 feet tall along the Kelsey Road access to the field.
If I may,
Sure.
if I may, Laurie, I hate to interrupt you. The reason that the college is before the zoning board of adjustment is only for the 4 80-foot towers. All of the lighting on the driveway is compliant with the present ordinance. So I appreciate your presentation for the site plan purposes of describing the entire thing. But we must remember that the reason they are seeking the variance is only for those 4 towers. Thank you.
The calculated light candela readings at the property line to any of the abutters is 0. The college is also applying for a variance because the 80-foot tall light poles on the field exceed 35-foot town height limit for structures. The 80-foot high height achieves the dark sky standard of providing adequate lighting on the field by directing that light straight down, whereas lowering the height would cause more glare and spill beyond the field. The 35-foot height restriction is in direct conflict with the dark sky standard in the zoning amendment and therefore presents a hardship for the college. The lights will be controlled remotely, allowing them to be turned off using an app at a scheduled time. Lights will be turned off at 9 p.m. for dimmed and then turned off after contests in compliance with the zoning amendment. The zoning amendment specifies the field may be lighted Monday through Saturday and limits the number of non-fully square college athletic events 20 per year. And in anticipation of this meeting, the handouts that I have, there are 2 from Musco that show, Musco is our field lighting representative, that show the lights at a taller height and how that gets the light to shine straight down. And still allows us to see the balls in the air. Like when the poles go down, if they shorten them, then you tend to get more light and glare that spills out. And so that's the reason that the 4 lights on the field have to be that tall. Also in anticipation of this tonight's visit here, I had a friend of mine put a crane up at 80 feet above to simulate the height of those lights, and all of those pictures show from different places around Kelsey Field, the cul-de-sac at the end of Autumnwood, right there, it's the cul-de-sac from the end of Autumnwood, and shows that you can't see anything over there. We couldn't see the boom at all or the fields. The house that's on the right, that's up that little driveway, I didn't go up that driveway because I don't know whether anybody was home and I don't know the people, so I didn't feel like it was appropriate to go up there and start taking pictures. I did go back around to the other side and I'll show you that when we get to that picture. This one here is looking, from the end of our, the Colby Sawyer lot, it's Emily Campbell's house on the left-hand side. From nowhere on Siemens Road could I see the boom or anything, down on Kelsey Fields. This picture is just as I pulled into Kelsey Field, just before the soccer field, which is the first one. If you bring that up a little bit closer, Adam, you can see that's the top of the boom. So that's 80 feet. It's just about in line with the birch trees are there. Keep in mind that we couldn't drive the crane up onto the field, so where the lights will actually be, there would be a little bit more to the left of that, and there aren't trees there. But from the height of the lights, it'll be about where you see the birch trees, if you're looking from a distance away from it. This next picture is as I was walking over towards the house that we can see this time of year from the Sally Shaw Beach track. And when we look over towards Autumnwood, the two houses that are at the end of the cul-de-sac on Autumnwood, the one to the left is the one that we can see from this time of year when the leaves aren't on it. So I was walking over towards that property line to take a picture back. So this is just walking over there. You can see the boom is off to the right. That cleared place in between, sort of to the left of the trees, to the right of the scoreboard, that'll be the area where those 4 lights will be installed. And this is the one that I took from the woods line from that other house looking back towards the fields. And then just for fun, I went down to the baseball field, which is down below the track, just to take a picture back up in case anybody might have any concerns about people further down, say down towards Pleasant Lake or something, being able to see those.
That's the last pictures.
Is that, just keep getting to do this, is that the extent of your presentation? Then we're going to have to tease out of you, with assistance from other board members, evidence of the 5 criteria required to pass this variance by a preponderance of the evidence. That's the college burden, if they want this variance, is to introduce facts to the boards of a sufficient character to sustain a finding by a preponderance of the evidence that these 5 criteria are true. And for example, we could take what I would think might be the easiest one first. If we grant this variance, will it fundamentally change the character of the neighborhood? What do you think?
I don't think it fundamentally changes the character of the neighborhood. That the field, all of the fields down there, they already have a scoreboard, flagpoles, those type of structures in place. These lights will be a little bit taller, but we already have structures that are in the air down there. And I think taking the pictures from different places to show that I don't think it substantially changes.
Then it'd be safe to say then that you wouldn't be carrying on any activities down there in the future that haven't been carried on in the past.
Right.
Just perhaps a little later at night.
Right. We already have contests down in that place. We don't have them at night at this time. The change of having them at night will be a change to the neighborhood, but I think the other safeguards that are in place about meeting the dark sky requirements to have the light shining down, not shining out, not shining in people's eyes, not messing with the wildlife down there, and turning them off by 9 p.m. or within a half an hour of having a contest. and keeping our noise levels down there, I don't think will change the character.
And you mentioned something like 20 scheduled events in the prior year. Well, I may not have that number exact, but your plan is not to include any additional scheduled events that require PA and scoreboard usage.
We haven't had any events down there at night, but when we did the zoning ordinance, we agreed that there wouldn't be more than 20 events that would be non-Colby Sawyer College. So for instance, if we wanted to let the outing club use the fields for the same type of usage, that they could use them, and that was the number that we agreed on, that there wouldn't be more than 20 that would not be our events. Our athletic events.
Any board, I can turn this over to questions with board members at any time. You folks can jump in. It's not my holiday show, so.
Michael, the 20 events require some kind of improvement process too.
Exactly. Thank you for that, Stephen.
But I would also like to ask.
Please do. No, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Laura. I think these dark sky standards look really fantastic. One question for you is the dark sky, I'm no expert on it, but I went to their website.
Sure.
And they have a certification process. Has Colby Sawyer submitted these plans and have they been certified by Dark Sky International?
I believe that it is after they're put up that they're certified. I think they get designed to the standards and then the certification comes after the installation. I think, I'm not sure, is.
Alan is on. Yep.
Alan
Yep.
Grady.
Hi all, Alan with Musco. Yep, so there's two parts of the process. One is getting Dark Skies to certify the design. That's the first step. And then the second step is to have them come out after the fact and just observe and take light readings, glare and spill readings to make sure that it does meet their standards.
And so have they certified the design?
The design, I believe, has gone through the process already. I don't know if we've gotten it back from Dark Skies yet, but our design, I believe, has been sent to them.
Okay, as the engineer, is it your opinion that the design meets the dark sky standards?
Yes, the Dark Sky standards, the biggest thing is glare. It's 1,000 candela at the 150-foot mark. So our designs meet that standard, correct?
Okay, so the dark sky standards also have an uplight standard of U0. Does the design meet that?
Yes, it does. They actually, I believe, allow 8% uplight, and that would be for aerial sports such as baseball or softball. So there's no uplight on this project.
Because this field is not an aerial sports field.
Correct.
Okay. So the dark sky standards recommend, well, put it this way. I noticed the design has a correlated color temperature of 5,700 Kelvin, which is pretty bright white light. I doubt if anybody has any lights in their home that are above 5,000. Yellow light is 2,700 to 3,000. Dark sky recommends not more than 3,000 as a general guideline, but they do allow up to 5,700 for sports facilities. But they say lower correlated color temperatures than the maximum are encouraged. So I guess I'm a little concerned that you've selected the absolute brightest, whitest, bluest light, which is known to have adverse effects on wildlife, among other things. Could you do something with less than 5,700 Kelvin?
We could certainly look at it. 57 is usually 5,700 is usually allowed just because it's the safest level to play for these athletes, and this is considered a higher level of play than high school, JV style sports. So we usually try and keep it the safest amount of light on the field, and that's why we went with the 5,700 here. The goal of our lighting is to match daylight, but also keeping in regards to the dark sky standards as well. So most of our lighting projects, I actually don't think I've done a one under 5,700 in the area. Not saying it can't be done, we could certainly look at it. I just suggest with the level of play, the speed and the safety of these athletes, 5,700 is typically the standard. The walkway lights going up are lower temperature. I believe they're 3,000 to meet dark skies, but the playing lights are 5,700.
Okay, well, as I say, the Dark Sky International encourages lower levels than that. It would be possible to have higher color rendering index. I noticed it's only 75, which to me doesn't work as well for the safety of play and visibility of everything. I know LEDs are not great in that regard, but 75 is kind of low.
Yeah, this would just be something I'd have to go back to our engineers and see if their thought would be lowering that color temperature at all.
Okay, am I correct that with what I read on Dark Sky International, that very high color temperature is not good for wildlife?
So I would say yes, if it were to be placed along, where you're getting the light to the trees and to the wildlife in these sort of areas. With our spill and glare cutoff, I'm pretty confident most of this light is going to be on the field. You could see these 0 light spill readings. I mean, by the time it's off the track, it's basically at a 0 as well. So I don't think this is going to have much effect on wildlife, A, because it's aimed downwards, and B, because the spill is so severely cut off that it doesn't really reach the wildlife areas in time. And then just the amount of time these lights are going to be on, I'm not sure that's going to affect the wildlife in the surrounding areas as well.
Okay,
And the fact that it's a turf field. There's nothing to eat.
okay, good point. So what? There are houses I happen to know that have distant views of these fields. At what distance will there be, assuming you can't see the field itself, would the lights essentially be invisible?
So this what you're seeing on the screen now, and I apologize, I'm not sure if you guys can all see it, but this is where this shows light spill. So the 0, 0 is where I could take my light meter, or Ducks guys will come out after. They'll put their light meter down and say, we have 0.0 foot candles of light on these red spots. So that is light spill. And then what I mentioned earlier about candela, that's the measurement of glare. So the glare is the nuisance of the actual fixture as well. And there's probably, I believe there's candela readings as well, but their standard is 1,000 candela at the 150-foot mark. And they would come out and verify that as well. The one thing also to keep in mind is all of these readings, and I know it's two-dimensional, kind of tough to tell, but none of these readings we have no way to account for tree coverage at all. So if these lights are on and the tree blockage helps the neighbors, that would certainly help it as well. But like you see here, the light spill is 0 by the time it reaches those tree lines.
Okay. 2 more questions. I assume that there'd be large times of expanses in the year, say from November to February, March, that there won't be any lights at all.
Right, yes.
Okay. And what's the elevation of the field?
That's a good question. I think the elevation, I'm not sure for sure. I know the elevation at the Hogan Center is 1,370 feet, but I know it drops down considerably after that.
Okay. It's relatively high compared to the town, so it looks from a topo map to be about 1,280. So that would get the top of these lights to 1,360. But if they're not visible to the side, I guess that's not really something to worry about. Thanks very much.
You don't have to thank me, it's all part of the discussion. Anyone else on the board have any questions? Or wish to address any of the other criteria we haven't talked about yet? I'm obligated to lead you through it.
If you want to,
Sorry?
if you want to start at number 1 and just go, I can keep it on the screen.
I'm not gonna read it. Yeah, wait a minute.
Actually, Michael, I have a couple questions.
Yeah, well, go ahead, John.
So I see the cut sheet on the light fixture. will this fixture have 4 heads? These fixtures have 4 heads each.
I'd have to look at the design here. Do you have the design right handy? Yeah, if you scroll all the way to the top of that page that you just had.
Sorry, hold on.
The top left will show it. So these are the, oh, yep. That page, one below. Right there. If we zoom in here on the left, you see pole heights, the type of fixtures, and how many fixtures per. So I believe there's a total of 52, and if my math is right, that's 13 fixtures per pole.
And the other thing is the diameter of the poles.
So we have 6 different pole classifications. The 80s footers, I'm not sure the pole diameter. I believe these are going to be 24 inches, maybe 30 inches. It might have it at the foundation design. We provide a stamped foundation design as well that would show that. See if I can find that.
Alan, I have the cut sheet up here. I don't know if that's
That was
helpful.
tough to read.
Because this is what will be on the top of the pole, correct?
Except 13 heads.
Correct.
Instead of 4.
I'm assuming the poles get more slender as they go up.
Correct. They're tapered from the bottom up. And we do have a structural team that looks at that, and we can do a stamp foundation design based on the setup. So they look at EPA, wind speeds, everything. So they make sure that the top, it's almost like a wind sail. If you have too much weight up at the top, it's not a good thing. So our structural team looks at that before we ship these.
And my last question is the color of the poles.
The color of the poles are galvanized steel gray.
I have 2 questions about the lights. These are sort of simple questions. How do the light bulbs get changed? And how often would they have to get changed or examined? That's one. And can you make them brighter if you start with a lower number? Can you start increasing the brightness of them?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So with the LED, typically if these fail for any reason, it's usually in the driver. So if you see this picture, there's called the electrical components enclosure. That houses the drivers. So if there is an issue, it's usually in there, and that would be replaced about 12 to 15 feet above grade. That being said, this does come with a 25-year warranty. So if there were any issues, our team would come out there and replace them. I've been here 5 years at Musco. The only thing I've seen them replace is drivers. A few drivers here and there. I have not seen them have to go out and replace the chips at the top of the fixture or replace the fixture themselves. So I have not seen that in the 5 years I've been there. They're basically L90 rating is I believe 60,000 hours, which means they drop from 100 to 90% rating after 60,000 hours of use. So typically, again, if anything fails, it's the driver. The other thing with the light changing, there is the dimming capability here. So if you wanted to potentially run a practice and you're thinking we don't need it at 100% for this practice, or a youth practice is rented out there for something, or band practice, you can drop those levels to 50% or 25%. A lot of times we see that as well. At the end of games, fans are kicking around and they're not leaving, so you dim them down to 25%, and it's kind of cue for folks to leave. So, but all these parts are covered with our 25-year parts and labor warranty as well.
One question for Laura. I'm not sure where you have to go to get a permit to use this field. Is it through you? Is it through the town?
To use it for some use other than Colby Sawyer athletics?
Yes.
We have to go through the town.
Okay, so concerts or other activities besides sports would definitely go through the town.
It's written into the ordinance that it requires a town temporary event permit for those 20, up to 20 events.
Okay, so, you have to demonstrate that this variance will not be contrary, if we grant this variance for these 4 poles. And this light source, it won't be not contrary to the public interest. Can you comment on that? Convince us.
I could, yeah, I'll take it right off what I.
Yeah, that's fine.
For the
Paraphrase.
proposed lighting, field lighting is designed to meet dark sky international standards while minimizing light spill and glare. The 80-foot height allows for focused downward directed lighting that improves visibility on the field,
Okay,
while significantly eliminating light trespass onto neighbors' properties. This height is critical to achieving dark sky compliance, which helps reduce impacts to the general public by minimizing glare, sky glow, and light pollution. Additionally, using taller poles enables better light uniformity and reduces the total number of fixtures required, making the installation more aesthetically appropriate and less intrusive to the surrounding area. The lighting design enhances public safety and supports community enjoyment of the space, aligning with the town's public interest.
which might address the issue of whether or not the spirit of the ordinance is preserved. Yeah, any questions? Any board members have any questions? Any? Planning board is being exceedingly quiet. The substantial justice argument is kind of a curious one. But in it, we look at 2 things. And there's 2 sides to it, but they both end up at the same place. I think it's pretty obvious what the benefits are to the college if we grant the variance.
That we get to meet our athletic needs.
Exactly. What would be the harm to the general public if we granted this variance? Would there be any in your eyes or anyone's eyes? Harm to the general public if we granted the variance and allowed the polls to be present?
I don't think there's harm to the public.
Anyone? Well, we could look at it another way. And I'm not fishing, I'm not here for any pro or con personally, I'm just here to get the debate started. The other way you can look at this, you could say, well, what is the loss to the college if we deny the variance? Substantially less use of a pre-existing paid-for structure. On the other hand, what would be the gain to the general public? Would there be any if we denied this variance and didn't allow the polls? Would there be any gain to the general public? Does anyone see any? Steve?
Yeah, I would allow it, that there will be light. And so, the magnitude of that is small because the design of
It is-
our sky.
It is intended to be mitigated to the greatest extent possible and still preserve the safety of the players.
Right.
Yes,
And the
I
zoning
get that.
ordinance anticipated that and calls for it.
Right.
Yeah, but it's doing.
Exactly.
I have a question, Doris.
Please.
Do you find athletes when they're applying to Colby Sawyer that they ask about this dark sky lighting? I mean, it's a fairly new concept, right?
They don't ask about dark sky, but they certainly ask about lights.
Okay.
And the opportunity to play it at night. And the other issue that we have is in practice time too, that we have so many teams that are either in the Hogan Center or are on the turf field in a limited amount of daylight, that it's really difficult to get all the teams to be able to get their practice. So this opens up that time.
Yeah, so it's an important thing for an applicant to know about your lights and you might get someone to come to Colby Sawyer that otherwise might not come if you didn't have this kind of light.
I can do that, right?
Okay.
Next to last point would be. Do you see that there might be any effect on the surrounding property values? If this variance is granted? I mean, I guess it's only residential on the western side of it. The aerial photos I looked at don't indicate a lot of development clustered about the complex, only butted up against the western side. What, if any, effect do you see on their property values as a result of this lighting?
I don't see a diminished property value because of the lights. It's already a playing field, already 3 playing fields down there, so I think that the neighbors are used to some traffic going down there for practices and games, some people going down there for practices and games. This is gonna be now a nighttime use, but I think the safeguards that we have in place between the dark sky standards, the not having music too loud or, all noise too loud down there, a limit on the number of days and number of events that we can have down there. And the times that we're gonna shut them off, by 9 o'clock, we're done down there. Or if a game happens to go to overtime, then within a half an hour, we dim them and then we shut them off. I don't think that diminishes the surrounding property values.
Okay, anyone have anything to offer on that?
Yeah, no, I
Please
do, this leads to the neighbors. Are there any intentions to cut any additional trees around the property that you're aware of? How about future lighting? Any other paths that you're gonna want lit?
I don't know if somewhere down the road, the college might not ask to have another field lit. At this point, we don't have any plans for that, and if that happened, they would have to come back through this process again. The only lighting that we're applying for right now, and I think the only lighting that's allowed right now by the zoning ordinance, is on the Sally Shaw Beach track and fields.
Thank you.
Well, I don't think we talked about the hardship piece. Did I miss something?
No,
Let's talk about the hardship piece. We have to talk about the physical characteristics of that property that show that the application of the ordinance to not allow these poles, the physical characteristics of the property, distinguish it in some way from the surrounding property values, because all the surrounding property values are limited by the same restriction. So there must be something specific about the character of this particular parcel that makes the application of the ordinance as applied to them to prevent these taller structures. Somehow that enforcement denies the college reasonable use of the property, reasonable use not being maximum use. This is the most challenging of the 5 criteria for the applicants to meet. What are your thoughts on that? And board members, please chime in if you.
My thoughts on that are that the zoning amendment, as recently passed, allows the lights on the property, and the height restriction is in direct conflict with that.
Right, and because of the physical characteristics of the technology that's providing the light, the only way that it can be minimized is by having them higher up. Prevent more diffuse light.
Yes.
Any other observations? Yes, Stephen?
Yeah, I'd throw in, one of the things we're struggling with is, when there is a hardship, how much relief is needed? In other words, could you get by with a 65-foot pole, a 70-foot pole, or an 80-foot pole? I found this is very useful on that score in support of the request for 80 feet, because it shows that how the technology works most effectively. And so what I'm saying is, I think there is a hardship. The use of this property is for sporting events, athletic events, and the proposal is a reasonable one to address that.
Okay. At this point, any questions from any planning board members? If you guys are going to be hearing this for the site plan review later on, is there anything you want to know from Laura about that presentation, other than that you've already heard? By all means, chime in. And then we will get to members of the public if you have any comments or.
Joe has a question.
I have a
Please.
question for you. In your opinion, as a professional educator, is the vitality of a good athletic program to grow in the future vital to the long-term survival of Colby Sawyer College?
It is, absolutely.
Can you explain why?
All of higher education right now is sort of under fire in terms of where this demographic lift that they've been predicting for years, where as of the 2008 recession, nobody was having children. Those are the people who should be coming to college now. And so the numbers of students available have dropped off. Our numbers of students have dropped off, and our net tuition has dropped off. We struggle to get students. We tried We have tried to add new programs, mostly in the health sciences. Everybody else has done that too, to try to get students in. And by adding these two new sports, this is a way that we can attract students that are interested in having those sports, men's lacrosse and women's softball. So this gives us an opportunity to bring a roster of 50 students in the college that we wouldn't have another way. And that's something that we need for our survival.
Yeah, any other planning board comment?
Actually,
Please, Frank.
Laura, do you know if there are any other colleges in the state that do not have lit fields
I
that
don't
you're
know.
aware of?
I only know about our conference, because all of the colleges participate in a particular athletic conference, and I know that we're only one of two that doesn't have lights in our conference.
Thank you.
Like what?
Yeah, please,
Um,
Juliet.
What's the power source for the lights? Is it a separate power source for the lights on the field, or is it run from your,
That's
You
a
know?
good question.
Yeah, so the contractor would come and upgrade the power from the street to help power the lights.
I would only offer from an emergency management, disaster response standpoint, having an illuminated field with this kind of capacity in the event of some sort of, heaven forbid, mass casualty or tragedy, having this capacity in this town and in the region would be hugely beneficial and is very much benefit to the public. So thank you.
Definitely increases safety.
Thanks.
Any members of the public have any comment or questions for Madam President about these lights and the use thereof? Seeing none. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Just have a question. Can you come and use the mic, John? Sure.
And John, right on the top of it, there's a toggle that just flip it the opposite direction and it should be good to go. Right on the top of the mic. Yep.
The question is actually to the designers. When we went to all those meetings and talked about all of this, why, when we were getting the town to vote on whether or not to allow this as a new zoning amendment, why did this height not come up?
I had no idea about it. I don't think we were in the stage where we would have known what the design was. I was as surprised as anybody when we got the drawings and saw, Adam and I were going over it when I was starting to fill out the site plan review paperwork. And he said, wait a minute, 8 feet? That can't be right. And I don't know.
Well,
But
they
we
would,
verified it and it was.
they wouldn't have known that would be the required height until they saw the width that we're trying to span with the respective light source. Possibly. I don't know. Good question, John. Thank you.
My question was actually for the engineer. I thought
Understood. I understand that.
perhaps he could answer that.
Yes.
I guess, was that for me?
It was.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm sorry, I is the question how I didn't know about the 35-foot planning
think-
board rule, or how?
I think the question was, during all the public hearings in preparation for including this amendment in the zoning ordinance, how is it that there was never a discussion of the effect of the height of the towers on the effectiveness of the lighting on the field? And how come this 80-foot tower appears now, but never in any of the discussion to adopt the ordinance?
And also the fact that we were voting to approve something that then needed a variance.
Yeah, well, that's, yeah.
Yeah, and I apologize, I guess I didn't know the variance until recently. I will say the design's always been 80-foot poles. I think we've always been working on that just to meet those dark sky standards. And maybe I think throughout the process, maybe I just didn't go about explaining that as thoroughly, but you know, in the first couple hearings, and I apologize for that, but it has always been, you know, these larger light poles.
In addition to that, perhaps the explanation might lie in the fact that all of the lighting on the driveway to the field is also dark sky compliant. Yes?
Correct. Those are shorter poles. Those are, and
And
those are
they're-
the lower light temperatures as well.
Right, they're shorter poles because the width that needs to be illuminated is less, and it doesn't need quite as much light. And so therefore, that may be one reason that the focus would have been on those and not field, the athletic field lights. I don't know, I'm just suggesting that maybe. Certainly don't think it was intentional on anyone's part to allude to, not to mention that.
I'm not suggesting.
Yeah, I understand, for the record, no one is, yeah, thank you, John. Further questions? Then at this point, the chair would entertain a motion to discuss.
I'll
It's been
second.
moved and seconded by Frank. Did we discuss? All those in favor of discussion? Signify by saying aye. All those opposed, none. The ayes have it. The discussion begins. We've reviewed all of the 5 criteria. We've heard a presentation about the technical support of the whole, the rationalization, the technical rationalization for the 4 poles that have been requested, subject of this variance. Anyone want to add anything, or we've all heard it? Steve, go
I
ahead.
want to add something real quick. Within the ordinance, there's a allowance for special exceptions for flagpoles and various structures that are similar to this. And what I think it illustrates is that the 35-foot height limit on structures is more vitally important when the structure is a big thing like a barn, a house, a building. And within the ordinance, it's less sensitive when we're talking about a pole.
Or an institutional classroom building, such as the.
And so,
I was just gonna tag on to Steve's point too, that there's actually an exemption specifically for utility poles under being essential service equipment. So we do have, I believe, a 75-foot utility pole on the M127 transmission line that goes up over the like Wilmot Center Road side, actually past your house, basically. And so there is actually even an exemption over and above a special exception in there as well.
So are you suggesting that if the college had
Strong.
proposed 75-foot pole, that we wouldn't be here for this? Is that?
No, because it doesn't meet the definition of an essential service equipment. Laura and I reviewed
Close,
that.
close.
So I agree with you, Steve. The only issue I have with that is the 13 heads, but I think we can, maybe Michael, we can go through the five criteria if anyone has
Absolutely.
further comments.
Yep.
So, as far as the public interest, if lights were an issue, the amendment would never have passed. It's kind of look at it that way.
Right, the public has spoken with respect to their feeling for importance of lighting in general on athletic fields. Yes, okay.
That also meets the spirit of the ordinance. Same time.
Yes, anyone have anything to add on that? So that's 2 of the 5.
How about substantial justice?
We talked about what is the benefit to the applicant by granting the variance? They're able to increase use of the fields, they're able to attract more students, which could conceivably increase the likelihood that the institution perseveres in terms of shortage of acceptable or shortage of students. And what is the harm to the general public by granting the variance? Can we find harm to the general? What is the harm to the general public if we grant this variance?
So the zoning restricts it to, is it the zoning that restricts it to 20 uses?
Yeah,
Correct.
Okay. The amendment.
it's 20 uses on top of.
Non-Colby Sawyer.
Non-Colby Sawyer uses, in addition to Colby.
That's under a special.
Yes, I see that.
So do you find any harm to the general public by granting variance?
The only harm would be visible light, but they, in order to get the light to not be visible, they have to raise the poles. And we've also created zoning that in order for them to meet it, 80-foot poles.
The other alternative for looking at this substantial justice argument is to say, what is the loss to the applicant if we deny the variance? And we compare that to the gain to the general public by denying it. Well, it's going to impede the college's ability to attract students.
And it's quite a loss.
And I don't see where there's much gain to the public, given the fact that the public can use it for 20 events per year.
Yeah.
And the last one would be effect on surrounding property values. And then this is one, we don't have any expert testimony on this, but we as a board can find in our own minds, based on our own personal experience, whether or not we think there would be any detrimental effect on the diminishment of surrounding property values if this variance were granted and if there are lights up until 9 p.m. And
Is there any neighbors here except for the RVs? Okay. I think that's it.
I think if they were in opposition, they would be here.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
it's one of those cases where silence suddenly makes an argument. Offer some evidence. Okay.
I
We have a-
know, I'm sorry, to go back to that, would it be unusual for a college field to have lights and you're a neighbor? Would that be something that would?
All the colleges I went to had their fields lit every night, so.
Well, the high school did too.
It's not dark lights.
Right.
Exactly, with not dark light compliant, exactly.
So I just want to make a comment that in flying back and forth across the United States, you see at night, you see a lot of these fields now lit like this. And when I fly over them, I'm so impressed with how little light is shining up versus when you go over a shopping center. I don't need to say anymore.
All right, are we all ready for a vote here? No, but I'm not seeing any hands. Yeah, you are.
Well,
raising your finger. What is it?
I heard a couple of potential conditions and I had them
That's good.
written down. Okay. That submission of the dark sky compliant design and the post-construction approval be submitted to the town.
Do you want to make this conditional on the approval of the preliminary plan and then the subsequent following the installation?
The certification by Dark Sky.
You want that as a
I
condition?
would buy it.
Got it, okay. Are we clear on the language of that?
I believe so, so that the college will be required to provide the dark sky compliant design and post-construction certification of dark sky compliance.
Good.
And then the only other thing that I heard potential was stamped foundation designs for poles. When that was brought up, the engineer mentioned that. I don't know if that.
I am not clear on what is meant by that. Is the engineer still on? Did you understand, Frank?
Yeah, so in order to put these up, they'll have to go to the fire marshal, who's gonna require an engineer to design those, so I don't think there's a need for us to
Okay.
make it a condition.
Perfect.
All right, are we,
The tiny question about those restrictions,
please?
will we be able to order our lights to get, we're sort of in a time crunch in terms of about how many weeks it takes to fabricate the light poles and that sort of thing and get them in the window of time that we need to install. Do we need to bring anything to the town, in terms of the dark sky compliant design before we're able to get underway with this?
So the design in order to approve the installations, when you're actually ready to move forward and get your permit for that, the design certification would be required. And then post-construction, after the engineers have come out, before the first game is played, I would say would be a reasonable.
It seems to me that the design approval should be done quite soon.
But I would
Obviously,
say if
the post-construction piece can't be done until it's constructed, but the design should be certified before you're ordering lights, I would think.
But if
Well,
that's
that's
a
the
risk, if
They
that's a
can go
risk
for
there,
Lights at their risk.
right?
Order them at your own risk, right, at your own peril, right. Okay, are we clear on what we're about to vote on? All those in favor
We
of,
have a motion and a second.
oh my lord,
Motion.
I would make.
I would say that we better have a motion to close debate.
Motion to close the debate.
And a second, and all those in favor signify by saying aye, all those opposed, no, okay, great. Now, the motion
I move approve. The motion as described by Rick.
with conditions as described by Adam Ricker. All right, are we clear on that?
Yes.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
That was my whole second.
Heidi seconded.
Oh, no.
All right, all those in favor of this signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? None. The ayes have it. Congratulations. The college has a variance to put up these lights on 80-foot poles. You're most welcome. And now we turn it over to the planning board for the purposes of site plan review, presentation for which the lion's share of the presentation for which you have already heard.
Yes,
Thank you.
and we were probably quiet, I'm guessing, because we went through all this quite a lot. In
Yeah.
crafting this ordinance, so I think we feel like we've seen this movie before, so, but it was very helpful to have it refreshed for sure. Okay, so.
I guess, if there's no
Yeah,
additional
yeah.
questions.
Okay, so. Does anybody from the board, no, I said that we've seen this a lot, does anyone have any questions, comments, anything? Yeah. The one, oh
I
yeah,
don't have a finding of facts at all that we need to know about.
We do, I don't know if we're
Yeah, I don't know
quite
if we're
there
quite there
yet, but,
I was gonna say, the one thing I was gonna add to.
because there may be more facts to add, Joe, depending on your conversation.
It came up a lot during our. Prior conversations about the property value idea and the whole thing, if the college were to, God forbid, go under, then property values would be a much more detrimental thing to property values than any of these other considerations in my view. But are there other comments from the, yeah? Well,
I just have a proposal on the last little discussion. It seems wrong for me once they get it up and they're testing it. You prohibit them to use it. You know, they have to get it. If they don't get it or it comes back negatively, then I have to shut them off and fix it. But once they go through this whole process, if they can get it up and they want to use it, I would feel that they ought to be able. As they're going for the final certification. Oh, we don't.
so that's not something we can opine on though, because that was the ZBA matter, right? Am I getting that right?
Correct, their condition included the timing of providing that, but my guess is that Musco won't actually close out the
I would just say
project.
that I would think that that's not a proper thing for the ZBA, that it's a site plan. Issue. It has to be,
Well, the granting of the variance. Oh,
okay.
my understanding, you're questioning the variance itself, that we made a motion that we approved it with these two conditions. And it's the second condition you're having the problem with. Because you feel it might deny them the use of it pending the final approval.
I have no idea how long it takes an international board to sign a piece of paper and test it. If they're gonna have the lights on to test it. Just seems silly for us to prohibit the school from using it while they're in the process of getting that certification.
Well, we're not prohibiting them from using it, we're prohibiting the granting of the variance. Now, if they can't get it to be certified by the Dark Sky Foundation, once it's already in and constructed and running, that is a problem that I think we're gonna have to face downstream if in fact it occurs. I don't have an answer for how we would deal with that at this point. But I think it's important that we grant the variance with the condition that it's with full compliance with the intent of the ordinance, which is we want this thing to be dark sky compliant. And the only way we have to ensure that is by the certification process, A, for the design, and B, post-construction. So it makes sense for us to include that as a condition of the granting, which we've done.
Maybe Alan could answer the,
Okay, Alan, are you still on?
I am, yeah, so the Dark Skies person that checks this lives in Massachusetts. So after installation, commissioning, it usually does take a week or so to get them up. I will say the few projects we've done, they've always passed. That being said, we would definitely work with our technicians or the contractor to make sure if we need to adjust some aiming angles and change some fixtures out, anything like that, between Musco and the contractor, we would definitely work to meet those standards. This is something that is, a feather in your cap, but it's really something we want to keep working with Dark Skies. It makes us look really good to have Dark Skies approval. So we want to make sure we meet these designs and do everything it takes. Bringing our technicians, working with our commissions, whatever it takes to get this done, we will do it. But knock on wood, we haven't had that issue yet.
Alan, presumably there's some training that has to go on once this is actually installed for the college staff to know how to properly use the lighting system, that if it's only a week between completion of installation and when they can typically get here to do the certification, is it reasonable that that week would be when the college would be figuring out just how to use it anyways, and they wouldn't be ready to use it for events, or?
No, so typically our training is just about an hour. It's an online training. All of our lights can be turned on remotely through an app or through a website. So we work with the athletic director and to show them how to use that app, to show them how to schedule lights on and off, to show them what kind of reports are done. But that, honestly, once these lights get commissioned, the training goes through usually the next day, and they're ready to try and turn those on as soon as possible.
And my question for Alan is, if tweaking is necessary, how long might that process take?
So I would put that as a higher priority for our technicians and our contractor. Not having gone through the process, I'm not 100% sure. I know contractors are busy, but if we say this gets installed in August, I would think once they're on site, it should only take a night or two to make those adjustments. Sometimes it might take 2-3 days to get a technician or the contractor there to get a lift and to access those lights.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just wanted to say, read you what's in the ordinance. It says, at the time of site plan review, any proposed field lighting and access road and parking area lighting must be dark sky compliant lights. So the certification is kind of important, because if they don't get it, then they violated the ordinance. I don't think our condition is unreasonable.
Is it a good idea to place some time limit on that?
I don't think it's necessary.
No, we've made our decision. We're all set.
We're done. That's what I thought. Yeah.
It's,
And there's nothing that restricts us from doing that.
it's a stop, yeah.
yeah, so are there other questions or comments from the board, either about Paul's comment or anything else?
I would just say I reviewed the plans with the fire chief today. He did not have any concerns with the installation. I think Julia makes a good point as far as public safety goes, that they may actually find a benefit to being there should we have some tragic event, but he didn't have any concerns.
Are there questions or comments from the public on this, from the planning board sides? Paul, are you comfortable with that discussion, or do you just?
It's a practical matter. To me, it seems silly as they're going through the process of getting the certification that they can't use them, but if I should have made that before that comment before withdraw.
Perhaps the installation will be over the summer when students aren't on campus anyways, and it will all be sort of moot, and they have the time before the season starts.
Okay, so no other questions or comments from the board? I'm looking around. Anything else from the ZBA? And you guys have spoken, but. Okay, fine. And then we'll do, finding of facts, since I didn't hear anything from the public.
So fairly simple finding of facts that the light poles have obtained a variance from the zoning board of adjustment on May 6th, 2025. And that the lights are allowed use of the New London zoning ordinance, and the proposed operations are compliant with the standards set forth in the zoning ordinance for the institutional recreational zone.
Great, thanks, Adam. Any questions or comments on that? So I would be looking for a motion from the board to approve this site plan.
Move to approve the site plan.
Is there a second? Charlene seconded. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstaining? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So you
Can
need
adjourn.
to vote to adjourn here.
Yeah, and then I need a motion to adjourn the planning board aspect of this. The ZBA is going to stick around. They have another item on their docket. Is there a motion to adjourn for the planning board?
So moved.
Second? Someone? Great, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thanks, everybody.
And planning board, don't forget, you have
Next
another
Tuesday.
meeting next Tuesday. Back to our same time and location, 6:30 Whipple Hall. And please bring your summer vacation schedules.
Adam, we're still canceled on 27th.
Yes, yep, since you added another meeting tonight, we'll give you almost 2 meetings this month. Thank you.
Okay, next item up is.
And you are welcome to stay.
Any of those planning board members are free to stay for the zoning board's second hearing of the evening, but you may leave if you wish. And now we need to hear from a representative of the GNC Trust of 2015 concerning a property in the town, Elkins, Borough of Elkins, part of London. So I guess that would be, well, what can we see here?
Thanks, Adam.
Motivated.
So, because Pierre Bernard is here, as opposed to Pierre Bedard. Do you know him? Not Bernard, Bedard. I'm accusing myself
Okay,
and, hopefully you'll have 5 voting members. You have to reappoint.
so for the purposes of this hearing, thank you, Ann. She, by the way, is related to the presenter. So as a result, she will stand down from the voting position on this board. And in her place, we will appoint Julia to be the 5th vote required for this hearing. Are you comfortable with that, Adam? Great. Okay. Brother Bedard, you may present the items required to get us to approve this special exception.
Okay, so this is a request for a special exception. GNC New Hampshire Trust 2015, Christopher Dumont trustee. Tax map 78, parcel 24-000-508 Elkins Road. Under Article 22, Streams Conservation Overlay District. Section D of the ordinance says, natural woodland buffer. The purpose of a natural woodland buffer is to protect the quality of public waters by minimizing erosion, preventing siltation and turbidity, stabilizing soils, preventing excess nutrients and chemical pollution, maintaining natural water temperatures, maintaining a healthy tree canopy and understory, preserving fish, bird, and wildlife habitat, and respecting the overall natural condition of the protected shoreline. The width of the buffer, we're existing a natural woodland buffer shall be maintained within 100 feet inland from an ordinary high water mark of all streams as defined by this ordinance.
If I may, cut to the chase, this is all great background.
Yes.
But if we could proceed to the drawing, I don't know, can you show us the drawing? Apparently, what this is we have a structure and a garage that were built, constructed in advance of the zoning ordinance, which enforced or set this buffer requirement. And so it is what it is. It's been there, pre-existing non-conforming.
Right.
And they wanna muck around with the upstairs of the garage. And that is all in the buffer, the bridges, the sewer lines, both structures, everything is inside the buffer. And that's just the way it was constructed way back when.
Yes.
And because they want to adjust or construct something additional inside the buffer, to wit, the second story of the garage. That is why we're here. And the only way we can grant this is to show that what they propose to do doesn't run afoul of any of the special exception requirements that are listed in the ordinance. And we'll kind of have to go through this exhaustive list after you describe to us what it is they're going to do.
So
What exactly are they thinking?
So the garage, they're adding essentially a bedroom. They've removed a bedroom from the existing dwelling on the other side of the stream and putting essentially a bunk room on that side of the street over the existing barn. They started construction. We were originally contracted to tie the septic system to the existing system. There was no increase in sewage loading. So it's just a matter of designing the system with a pump in the barn itself, pumping to the existing septic tanks at Leach Street.
Okay, so when they finish this, is this, in your opinion, in harmony with the surrounding area? Is this gonna fundamentally change anything that's going on down there?
No,
Same number of bedrooms as before, it's just you move one across the creek and
Right.
hooked it up to the sewage line.
And one of the things that I struggle with when I read the ordinance is it says a natural woodland buffer where it exists.
Yeah, I get it, I get it.
This, there's some trees there, but, the place is, heavily used as it is up and down the stream in that part of Elkins.
So there's no change in the footprint.
No,
It is not getting any bigger. There's no greater intensity of persons occupying the property because you took the bedroom out of the house and you put it in the garage.
yes.
Bigger or higher, right? No, not higher either.
No, it's just using the existing garage, is my understanding. Is that correct?
I mean, they put a second story on the garage, it just,
It went from a 3/4 or from a half to a 3/4 story.
yeah, something like that. And they just added a full wall instead of just the rafters.
Okay, but it doesn't run afoul of the height restriction.
No,
And it's the same, it's residential use,
yes,
no change from the prior.
right.
One clarifying point to that end is that this property is wholly within the floodplain. So the construction practices will require them to meet the floodplain requirements for building in the floodplain on the first floor for flow through and all of that. That's handled through the building permit process, but just for full transparency.
Yeah, and we've actually contracted with an engineer to do the flood openings on the building, on the lower part of the building.
Okay, but that's not within our jurisdiction. You're adjusting the construction to comply with the floodplain requirements. Yeah, understood.
Correct.
And since it's going to be the same use, there won't be any appreciable increase in any of these nefarious things such as vibration, dust, smoke, fumes, odor, unsightliness, or any of that, in your opinion. And there's no fundamental change in the use, so therefore we shouldn't expect any increase in any adverse effect on the environment. As a matter of fact, would it be fair to say you're doing everything you can to mitigate any adverse environmental effects?
Yes, I mean, the only thing that we've mitigating is adding the sewage disposal connection.
But there's a whole leach field is new, yeah.
If the leach field exists,
Mm-hmm.
it's been permitted as such, as a 4-bedroom, I believe.
I would add to that the environmental impacts from being in the floodplain, the structure is in the floodplain as it exists today without any building technology to accommodate that.
Understood. Yep. And residential uses allowed under the ordinance. They're addressing the sewage disposal issue. It's not, this use is not very detrimental to vehicular traffic in the neighborhood because all those bridges were always there anyway.
The bridges in the driveway exist. There's a bridge coming off of Elkins Road, and then there's a driveway coming off of the Highland,
Hillcrest.
Hillcrest Road, yeah.
And then no change to any of that. It's all just the way it was.
Right.
Well, now we get into the slippery pieces. The protection and promotion of general welfare of the inhabitants by preserving the rural charm. This does nothing, in your opinion, to contravene that.
No,
Does anyone in the zoning board have any questions of the applicant regarding any of the conditions imposed by the special exception requirement?
Yeah, just a couple quick questions. The changes being made to the barn, are they enhancing its appearance? Downgrading it?
no, I believe that I think they've replaced the exterior siding, and I'm assuming it'll be sided similarly to either the existing dwelling or some other appropriate siding.
It's described as a bunkhouse,
Yes,
and so it's not a separate dwelling unit because it lacks a kitchen.
right, no, it's just gonna be an additional bedroom. It's not a studio apartment, not gonna have a kitchen.
But insulated and heated must be
Yes.
because of the, yeah.
And with sanitary facilities.
Right, right, it can't, I mean, under the other parts of the ordinance, it couldn't be a separate dwelling unit. Because it's unattached,
At the moment.
yes.
At the moment, yes.
And just to add clarification on the tents used there, this application was born out of an enforcement action where the work began prior to proper
This is
permits.
after the fact, is it? I see.
Well, after the fact, in that there's some structure there. I saw it I think a week into the construction project, so everything stopped right there. So there's no windows, it's wide open at this point. Correct.
Closed in before winter. Anything further any questions more questions by the zoning board on of the applicant?
No, I'm just going through the other criteria. This is in the case of a special exception involving a large construction project, this doesn't fall under it.
No,
No special exception uses. No equitable waivers, and there's nothing.
nothing nebulous in here. Any questions of the members of the public that are here at the hearing about this application for the special exception? Please come to the microphone, and I think Adam will tell you how to turn it on.
It looks like the green light was left on, so it should be live.
Have a seat and where you can reach it, and identify yourself for the record and ask us our questions.
Good evening, my name's Rand Hinman. I live on 9 Hillcrest Road, which is abuts to this property. And I fully support the continuation, get this project done. As a neighbor, and I see very little impact with this project. The footprint's the same, the height of the building is the same, the lights and all that are the same. So from that position, I support that this project be approved and moved along.
Great, thank you. Looks like quite a unique property. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Pierre?
No, happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Okay, does anybody have any more questions for Pierre about this? You guys ready to motion to discuss?
Yes, move to discuss.
Moved and seconded by Heidi. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. All those opposed. Ayes have it. We are in discussion mode. We have gone through the checklist of the special exception criteria and made questions of the applicant. Is everyone good with all of the answers that we received?
Yes.
Yes.
Any further discussion? You guys ready for a vote?
Yes.
Motion to close discussion.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, great. Discussion closed. Now, are you in favor of the approval of the special exception based on the presentation provided by?
I move to approve.
Second. Discussion, none. Conditions, none?
No.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Congratulations. You have been awarded a special exception for this property. Project may now be continued to conclusion.
I'll permit.
And that permit is permit. That's not our jurisdiction.
Pierre, you can be Ann's representative since I think she took out, because I'm gonna tell them also they need to get me, so you can pass this on to her. But your summer schedules as well, because I think we are teaming up for a busy summer of applications from what I can see. So
Well, as I say, they're just out there regrouping. That's what they're doing. Okay. I believe that concludes all of the business before the zoning board of adjustment for tonight's hearing. Thank you all for coming, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
No, do we want to discuss?
We have no minutes at this point because
a
they're
bunch
just.
got loaded up today, so, or I believe so. We are finally, as of last week, up to well, full positions filled downstairs. The new person is tapering up to full-time as their current job rolls down, so we have them 3 days a week. So the first time in 8 months, I think we are inching towards full staff. So
In other words,
minutes are on there, I believe, up to date through today. So at the next meeting,
brace yourselves, we're gonna have some minutes filled.
yes.
So, if we're discussing schedule, do we do it during the meeting or after the meeting?
So I think actually for you guys, because you don't meet with the same regularity, good question, Frank. We should, if you could send me, if you have dates that conflict with our typical first and third meetings. With the exception, I've written off the 4th of July weeks for any potential meeting. I just think from public standpoint, we try not to meet those 2 weeks because too many people are on vacation, they can't attend. But I'm just thinking we are going to have one application coming very quickly. They're trying to get a survey of properties under contract. The buyer found an issue needs to be dealt with. And we're gonna be under somewhat of a time crunch with that. So I would say plan for the first June meeting. Hopefully we can hit that for these folks. If their surveyor can't, then it'll be the second June meeting. And then when we get into July and August, when quorums can be tougher on schedules. If you could let me know.
Anything further?
What's the date in June?
I think it's June 3rd, Steve. June 3rd is the first and the 17th is the second potential. And it's an interesting one.
Okay, further comments? Move to adjourn, all in favor? Done, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.